Thanks, Maddie. Very subtle. All right, so I think we're going to get started. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. Especially thank you for coming because I know there's like a lot of really, really good talks on in this time slot. So I feel very deeply appreciative that people decided to come along to this one, where I'm going to be talking about using YouTube as kind of like a game development process, I guess. Just a little bit of background. Obviously, my name is Luke Muscat. I'm from Queensland, Brisbane, and I've been making games now for 17 years, quite a while anyway. For a while I worked at Half Brick Studios and I was the creator of Fruit Ninja and Jetpack Joyride. And then there was a period there where I left Half Brick Studios and started a new studio called Pretty Great with Hugh Walters and Phil Larson. And we made a bunch of games and then eventually we were acquired by Snapchat. So we were like at Snapchat as like the first party kind of studio was the idea, and we made a bunch of Bitmoji games. And the Bitmoji games are like the most popular games that no one's ever heard of, I guess I would say. Like we had games that had, I forget what Bitmoji Party had exactly, but I think by the time I left we'd cleared like 350 million players who had played the game. And then I come to like a game developer conference and they're like, what do you work on? And I was like, I made Bitmoji Party. And they're like, oh, never heard of that. But that's because everyone here is older than 16. I assume anyway. And so I was at Snapchat for 4 years and then eventually I decided to leave and pursue solo game development. And as a part of that, I also started a YouTube channel, and now I guess I am going to say out loud for the very first time that I am also a YouTuber. Feels so dirty saying that. Oh my God. Also, in case you haven't noticed, I like to make my life difficult for myself when I'm making presentations. So why go solo? I guess there was three main reasons for me. The first thing was just I really needed a change. When I left Snapchat, Snapchat was 5,000 employees, if you can believe it. And that's just, you know, I don't even need to explain what that impact has in terms of making games. But the bigger thing for me actually was I just really wanted to accelerate my learning. So after 16 years of, you know, probably most of that, at least 12 years of that was like running a team, being like the design lead of a team between 3 and 9 people. And although like every single game you learn something new, I was just like, wow, I'm really kind of like, I don't feel like I'm learning that much year to year anymore. And so I was thinking how is going to be the best way for me to accelerate my learning, and I think solo dev was a really good fit for that because I'm going to have to learn how to program again. I'm going to have to learn to do art. I'm going to have to figure out absolutely everything, and I'm going to have to do it fast and efficient. And so I really saw this as a way to optimize the way that I would learn. And the third thing was I was really inspired by my good friend Leighton Hawkes. Is Leighton in here? Hello, there's Leighton. Leighton made a bunch of solo games a few years ago now, and I just found it like so inspiring, frankly. Like it kind of reminds me of like wanting to run a marathon. Like there's kind of not like a really practical reason to run a marathon other than to be like, fuck yeah, you remember when I ran a marathon? And you just challenge yourself. And you're like, Leighton made a bunch of really good games. And whenever I would talk to him, like he never regretted it for a moment. So I felt very inspired by that. And I was like, I want to also have had that experience. I mean, it's probably like a good time to mention that, you know, there's definitely a lot of privilege that comes along with being able to do this, like being able to leave like a high paying tech job to not have any income at all for a while I dick around in Unity and make YouTube videos. You know, I'm extremely lucky to be in this position. I've also worked sensationally hard for 16 years to be in this position, but I've been very fortunate to be in the position to be able to do that. And so I definitely recognize that. And so there's like a lot of challenges, I think, with doing solo development. And these are the big three for me. The first one is just that time is precious. And when you're working on something on your own, it takes a long time. And the thing I was absolutely most terrified of was spending multiple years on something and then releasing it and no one cares. For context, I have a friend who is a solo developer. He has been working on his game for 5 years. It is not yet announced. And I was inspired to be not like that. That is exactly the opposite of what I wanted. Another big challenge, I think, is, the need for external validation. At least for me, I need that. I need people to say kind of you're doing a good job, or even the other direction, you should try working on this more. Obviously, when you're in a team, you kind of have that push and pull, you have constant feedback, and you have kind of wins and losses as a team, and you can kind of share that moment and that experience of making a game. Whereas doing it solo, you obviously don't have that ability. And the third one is that marketing is hard, and this isn't unique to solo development at all. Marketing is hard for everyone, but I also realized I'm gonna have to do the marketing. And when I'm doing the marketing, I will not be working on the game. Nothing will happen. So, that was definitely the third big challenge for me. So with those in mind, I was also kind of looking at YouTube, and specifically game development YouTube, and well, not even game development YouTube, just gaming YouTube. And to me, at least, I feel like I identified a gap. There's a lot of tutorials on YouTube, right? How to blank, anything you could possibly dream in Unity. There's probably a video on how to do it, and most other game engines as well. On the other side of the spectrum, you've got Let's Plays and reviews and critiques and speed runs, and there's a monstrous amount of content there. There's not a lot of game development, showing a game getting done. Now you do get kind of devlogs and stuff, and then you get the ones that are I made Minecraft in 24 hours, or I built GTA 1 in a single line of code, or whatever. But even so, I don't think there's very many of them relative to the larger gaming space, but even more so, there was very, very few things there that focused on game design. A lot of it was either game art or game engineering, and there was just not much design sort of stuff there. And I get it, because design is definitely not as, in terms of games and mechanic design at least, is not as visual in the way that art is, and it's not as impressive, I would say, as a crazy engineering challenge. But still, I felt there was a huge gap there. Another thing that I observed about YouTube for gaming stuff was a lot of it was faceless. And so by that, I mean, it's a voice over the top of game footage or whatever, or maybe there's an avatar. But there was actually very few people kind of putting their faces there in the videos. The thing is, though, is I don't actually really watch any gaming stuff on YouTube. I have enough games in my life as it is. What I do watch is a lot of engineering YouTube. And so engineering YouTube has its own spectrum as well. And down one end, you have things that are really hardcore, dry engineering, right? I optimized a piston in an engine kind of thing by making these 3 tweaks to its geometry. And then right up the other end, you have videos like this one, which is teaching a robot dog to pee beer, where it's really an entertainment video, and the person basically uses engineering to execute a visual joke, more or less. And for me as well, I kind of mapped this back to game dev YouTube, and again, it was very you've got the tutorials down here, and then you've got just pure entertainment up here, and I felt there was a gap in the middle. So what I kind of identified was I feel there's this gap on YouTube, and there's these challenges with solo game development, and I felt that could potentially, they could complement each other. And so this was the idea, essentially. I would make prototypes in 100 hours. 100 hours, to be clear, I just picked out of nowhere. I just was that's a nice round number. That makes sense to me. And I would build them and release them along with a video to gauge interest. And I would just keep going until something sticks, more or less. So in this way, I would be kind of solving 2 of the problems, which would be, I don't want to work on something for ages that no one cares about. And also I would be getting kind of validation at the same time. And the other thing is every time something doesn't work, I figured I'm at least building an audience along the way. Every time I release a game and a video and it's well, that's not going to be what I work on, at least at the same time, hopefully I'm building subscribers, and this is going to be an audience that is going to be connected with me because I'm putting my face in the videos and, you know, kind of really trying to put myself out there to create that connection, and will hopefully come with me on the journey through multiple games, and, you know, I can keep on building this audience, and then that's kind of my marketing plan at the same time. So that's sort of how I had identified YouTube as being a good fit. If you're thinking, wait a second, isn't this a bit flawed? You're totally right. It's super flawed, because how do you actually measure, oh, this game did really good versus this game through a YouTube video? Because, for example, I released the very first one, I have 0 subscribers. And then I can release another video like a year later and I have 50,000 subscribers. Like, how are you going to compare the success of those against each other? It could just be that the video title is much better. It could be that the thumbnail is better. Just general algorithmic bullshit, right, is going to get in the way. And the thing is, I mean, I strongly recognize that this is flawed. I don't think you could get game A and game B and go, well, game B has 25% more interest, right? I don't think you can get that granular with anything. But my hope, at least, is that it will at least measure to like an order of magnitude. I'm not looking for like really fine kind of measurements on this. It's just really like waiting for something to stick and to click and like kind of go on fire. And I think that that will be a strong enough signal to be like, yes, you should work on this game. So that's kind of my thinking there. And so I started building games. So the very first game I built was called Search Rock. So again, this was the first time of like me really building like something more than just a prototype on my own. And I was like, there's so many problems and so many challenges with this. What I don't need is a design challenge. I'm like, let's just do the classic game 1 plus game 2 combo. In this case, it was literally like, let's get Vampire Survivors and make it with cars, make it kind of physicsy. I've got so many other problems to worry about. I'm just going to keep it really, really simple. And the game looked like this, and you know, you've got hordes and hordes of cars, big damage numbers, weapons and everything, all kind of good stuff. And the way that I felt about it when I was working on it was, even though this seems pretty good, I just really didn't want to wade into a fast follow market. By this time, there was already like plenty of Vampire Survivors-esque games. And for me, at least, it was like a little bit too derivative to, oh, like, by the way, the oxygen is how much time I have left on my talk. So we're 40% of the way through. If I run out of oxygen, I actually don't know what happens. I assume that the game will crash or something. So yeah, for me at least, you know, is really important to me to make things that I feel are like really original. Like I have a hard time getting like excited about like fast follow stuff. But the thing is like when I released it, like people really got into it. Like there was a lot of people playing the game and everything, and I had like a lot of people saying to me like, you should just make this and put it out on Steam. Like it would do really well. I think it would like really catch fire. That was hard for me because it was literally the first one. So I didn't have any data points to compare against yet. But also like it was already out and it didn't catch fire, right? Like everyone who was telling me you could put it on Steam and I think it would go viral, I'm like, I don't know, it's on itch and it's free and it didn't go viral. So I can't imagine that it would go viral with like 6 months behind the fast follow market. So again, like this is just me kind of using a combination of like vaguely objective data and also like my kind of intuitions. And so yeah, again, like it did really good, but just never went absolutely crazy. And so here's like some stats that I was using to like try and measure how the games and how the videos were doing. So after the first 30 days, it had just over 10,000 views, which considering I started with like 0 subscribers, I was like, hey, that seems pretty good. The other thing I was kind of measuring was like the comment ratio, which is how many comments I would get per 1,000 views, just to try and like vaguely again get a metric of like how engaged people were and how much they were kind of connecting with the content. This one was really interesting because the game itself was kind of like presented in a I quit my job to go indie sort of wrapper, which meant I got like a lot of comments that were like, yeah, good job for quitting. I can't wait to see what you do. That was completely unrelated to the game. So that obviously like distorted the results tremendously as well. But it's actually done quite good on itch. So it's had 53,000 plays on itch, and it made $876, which surprisingly was all through itch donations, which I was very surprised about. Also, that's like from relatively few donations, because I think there were people who kind of, wanted to get on board of the story of like person quits their job to go indie. There's like kind of a compelling case there to be like, I want to support this creator. So anyway, that was the first one. And again, did pretty good. And I'm like, okay, I'm not feeling it. It's not quite original enough. Let's try something else. So the next game that I tried making was called Luck of the Draw. The idea was, it's kind of, so for people who are familiar with the games, it was essentially Super Auto Pets meets Luck Be a Landlord, but without using other games to explain it, it was essentially like you're building a Russian roulette revolver that had 3 cylinders, and it was an asynchronous multiplayer game. And so the different things you could load into the cylinders would have different synergies, but obviously you couldn't determine exactly what would roll. And so you were trying to build like a probability synergy engine, more or less. The whole reason I made this one was I really wanted to get better at designing interesting choices. Like, I think that I'm pretty good at making things that are actiony and feel good, and like explosions and stuff like that. Fruit Ninja Jetpack Joyride definitely fit into that. Interesting choices is definitely not my strong suit, so that's what I thought I would push myself at here. And so I made this game, and I was like, is this the smartest thing I've ever made? I think I might be a genius. I can't wait to release this and for everyone to love the game. And the game was like, I got multiplayer working, like kind of multiplayer working because it's asynchronous. But I was just so psyched on it. And you can like probably already tell where like the next slide is going with this based on the lead in. Yeah, it was just like, other designers really liked it, but like straight away, day 30 views, 2,600. So basically 1/4 of the first video, even though the first video started at like 0 subscribers. Comment ratio was down a little bit as well, and 6,000 itch plays, $42 made. To me, this was kind of a huge success because in a way, this game exactly represents why I wanted to do the YouTube strategy in the first place. Because in a vacuum, I have absolutely no doubt that I would have spent 2 years making Luck of the Draw. There's no, like, I definitely would have. Even if this probably had done as well as Sir Truck, I could imagine like a path where I end up going down that. But this was such like a clear indication. And like, I spent ages messing around with the thumbnail and the title and trying to promote the video because I'm like, they're just, once people find it, they'll be, and at some point you go, oh, okay, I think maybe it's just the game is not that interesting for people. So yeah, again, I found this, like, even though the game did poorly, it was like super validating. Also, to be clear, like, it deeply hurt me. Like releasing, like when you release games and like so much of you is tied up in it. Like, I was feeling that with these prototypes too. Especially, and I think if you talk to any solo developers, they'll probably echo the same thing. You feel everything like so on like such an exaggerated scale because it's just you, anything, and all the reasons the game isn't good. There's nowhere where you can be like, well, maybe if, like we had to figure this out. It's like, no, it's just me. So with that, I started working on the third game, which was Feed the Deep, which is this. I made my presentation in Feed the Deep, and so it looks like this, technically. And my objective here was I wanted to make a game that was surprising for me to play. So I really wanted to do something with procedural generation, just so while I was working on it, it would, kind of surprise me sometimes. But the biggest thing is I wanted to like visually have something that would draw people in. So, I think you can see when you're looking at the Luck of the Draw picture, and it's just like, oh, there's like a lot of information and cards, and that's like, it's built kind of around a visual metaphor, but no one's like, ooh, what's that? When I first started working on Feed the Deep, I think this is what like the screenshot was that I was sending to people, and it's like so basic, right? But it had this quality to it where people were just like, they would lean in and they're like, ooh, so like, what are you doing in this game? like, is there something at the bottom? Like, how does it work? And it just kind of drew people's curiosity. So even though it was such a simple kind of like visual conceit, I felt like we were onto something. Myself, I had no idea really what the heck the game was, other than like a thing that like really used a bunch of lights and shadows. But anyway, I worked on it and did the 100 hours thing, and like this was kind of like the clear indication, I guess, I was looking for all along. So after day 30, it was already at 330,000 views. So like literally 33x what Sir Truck was at. I felt like this was that order of magnitude kind of signal that I was looking for. The comment ratio is actually like a little bit down, which is interesting because what tends to happen is as the video starts to do really well, it gets like surfaced to more people who like naturally engage less. And so when I compared the comment ratio to like the click-through rate, I was actually thought that the 3.0 per 1,000 was really good. Anyway, blah, 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 stats. The game so far has like over 18,000 wish lists already, and I was like, holy shit, like I've not even, so far I've only spent 20 minutes drawing the diver. It's just literally like capsules and that's it. So I was like, to me, I felt like this was finally a really strong indicator that this is what I should work on. And it also made $843 in YouTube ad revenue. So hey, that's not nothing, that's something. So yeah, I felt like really validated by this idea. The other thing that happened is I got like 8 different publishers made contact with me after the video, which was unreal because like I'd definitely never worked on anything before where all of a sudden people were coming to me. I talked to quite a few publishers. I eventually decided that I didn't want to take a publisher, mostly like I just need to have one game that's like just me kind of thing. But I took this as a big vote of confidence again, that this, I was getting so many clear signals that this is the game that I should work on. So I listened to those signals and I've started working on it now. And actually it's over in the corner if you would like to check it out later on. But yeah, I thought it'd be good to go through some of like the pros and cons of this kind of like YouTube approach for, integrating it into like the game development process. First off, I would say like it's not that much, like it's work, but it's not as much work as maybe people expect. So for me, at least, I record everything that I'm doing more or less as I'm going. And then I just take notes. Like sometimes like I'll work for like 3 hours and nothing happens. And I like just mark it as, you can use this as a hyperlapse to like fill in some space if you want, because people love just seeing like the code is going like super fast, even though it's taking me like 20 minutes to figure out why it won't compile. Looks really impressive, sped up. But then sometimes it'll be like, oh, there was like a really good bug. So I'll like take notes and you end up with like quite a good like stack of footage to work with in the edit. I would say the con is it's like really quite exhausting work. So even though usually for like one of the 100-hour prototypes, I can essentially, by the time I've finished the prototype and it's ready to go, it takes me about 3 days max to have the video live on YouTube, which is, probably a day of script writing, 3 hours of like filming myself, and then like a day of edit, and then got 4 hours left over to do thumbnails, metadata, all of that. But it is super exhausting work because, again, like, when you release a game and then you're like refreshing to see the comments and the reviews and trying to see how it's tracking, I totally have that with every video I do. And that mode switch out of like, you kind of have that adrenaline of releasing a video, seeing what people think, and you're in this kind of video mode, and then trying to kind of rip yourself back to like, okay, now do game dev, is really hard and like actually really tiring as well. So even though it's not a lot of work, it kind of consumes a lot more space than maybe you would expect. Again, I think, the pros are, I think this is an actual result that I can use, again, only to roughly like an order of magnitude accuracy. But, I think most people would agree based on those results, at least of those 3 games, there's like really clear signals there. One of the things that's going to be really interesting is like how flawed these results are. So for example, the wishlist conversion on the game is going to be fascinating when I eventually release Feed the Deep, because I can imagine there is a world where there's a lot of people who are watching the videos and they're mostly like just wishlisting because they want to like support my videos by following a call to action, but they don't actually have any purchase intent, for example. So it could be that those 18,000 wish lists are just like total junk and essentially worth like 1,000 wish lists. I guess we will find out. Another pro for me is I find it really rewarding. I just like making videos as well. I really like editing videos. I hate recording myself. It's the absolute worst. But I really enjoy like building videos and figuring out how to tell a story in an interesting way. And it's always really rewarding to see people kind of engage with the design side, especially when I'm kind of like just trying to be entertaining and then trick people into learning something about game design. So I find that really good. I would say a con is like you need a relatively thick skin. Like if you've been making games for like 10 years and then like a 16-year-old says, well, actually the way that you make a game is X. If that upsets you, you're not going to have a good time. And which like I get as well. I think at least for me, that doesn't upset me, but you would have every right to be upset by that. But if that is the case, you're going to have a bad time. The other thing I would say is it's like insane how many people like make comments about my physical appearance in the videos. And so as like a straight white person, I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. Like I don't really care. But if you were like someone who, you know, maybe is societally made to feel good or bad based on the way that you look, and then you get hundreds of comments from dickheads all over the internet like about the way that you look, I can imagine that would be incredibly taxing, and you know it could be taxing for any number of reasons for any number of people. And you know I'm just, it's incredible to me how many people comment on like physical features of like anyone who are in my videos, and it's just like obviously that's just how like a lot of people connect with media, but like yeah, it's pretty stunning, and you know something that I would say, if you're going to go down this road, it makes sense to me why so many people do faceless and like avatars, right? This was really, really good for publishers. Like I mentioned, you know, this was, it helped like a whole bunch of publishers bring interest to me, but this was actually really good for getting funding from Screen Australia as well. When I like did my pitch, you know, I obviously put in like, look, I have the video, it has this success. I have this many people who have already wishlisted the game and who are saying in comments, I would buy this game. How much will it cost? What platforms will it be on? And so, you know, when Screen Australia rang me to let me know that I'd been successful in my application, like Lee literally said, like, you know, we were super impressed by the amount of evidence you could bring to the party in terms of, you know, how much demand there is for this game. I would say on the flip side, in terms of like the total process, it's definitely like weird, right? Like it's not kind of the super typical game development path, because originally I did also talk to Screen Australia about, hey, would you like to maybe fund the prototypes? And they were like, this sounds cool, but I don't see how it could kind of fit into like the current boxes we have. Screen Queensland actually like has a grant now, which is like the experimental gameplay grant, which I feel like they maybe made just for me, which is essentially like, hey, make a game and then maybe do like a YouTube video about it or something, which is cool. But, you know, definitely it doesn't neatly fit into the model of how like games are traditionally made. There's also kind of a problem where you lose your ability to do like a big surprise announce, I guess. Like you're doing things so transparently and so openly, you can't be like, guess what? It's like, yeah, people already know. Certainly not everyone. It's not like it's reaching everyone, but you do lose that kind of like that mystery and that surprise element by doing it this way. It's been good because I've gotten like a little tiny bit of trickle income, I guess I would say. I'm currently making about $1,300 a month on YouTube AdSense, which is not nothing. It's more than beer money, that's for sure. So that's really nice. The flip side is there's definitely sharks in the water there. So I spent a little bit of time investigating like, okay, what would it look like if I started doing like sponsorships and like, you know, having like brand management. And I talked to some very lovely, wonderful, authentic people. I did, but there was like 2 of them. The amount of like people who are just sort of like trying to like piggyback whatever you've got going on and like essentially exploit like your work. I mean, it's no different from anything else, but I feel like in game dev stuff, I can come and like talk to fellow game developers and they'll be like, hey, you know, like look out for this and this is legit. And I did not have that community in terms of like, you know, video and YouTube. So that was really surprising to me. I guess like I shouldn't have been that surprised. And I guess like the very last, oh shit, we're almost out of time. The very last thing was like, it's really hard for me to turn content brain off because I'm like, ooh, this could be content. I could make a video out of this. And sometimes that has like a distorting effect on how I'm developing the games. Like for example, I had to fix a lot of things in Feed the Deep that are going to be like really dry content. And there's like a part of me that's like, no, just make like the cool new tentacle monsters because then you can make a good video and it's been a while since you've released a video and it's kind of difficult to get off that treadmill. So anyway, yeah, that's my talk about using YouTube as a game development tool. Thank you very much. And I will... Oh no, what's happening? Oh God. It didn't crash. It did throw a bunch of exceptions, but technically it didn't crash. So are we allowed to do questions or do we need to like wrap it up or? Yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, if anyone wants to ask me any questions, also if you don't feel comfortable asking in the room, definitely you can email me, come grab me after. And also I'm an open book. Like if you literally want to come and look at my YouTube studio dashboard and I can show you kind of like what like general numbers and stuff look like, I'm more than happy. It's yeah, super transparent there. Matt.
I have a question about the cadence of your YouTube videos. When the channel came out, you were regularly pushing content. When you switched over to producing a real game over a long period of time, it's going to be much harder to... The tone of your channel is going to change completely.
Yeah.
The amount of videos you can put out is going to change. Are you worried about that or what are you planning to do to manage that?
Just so that everyone can hear, in case you couldn't, like Matt was asking about like the cadence of videos, and obviously as I switch to doing Feed the Deep, I'm not going to be able to keep up that same cadence and it's going to kind of change the character of the channel. And am I worried? Yes. I mean, I am worried. It's hard because what I'm trying to do, like, so my current strategy is to do every second video about whatever I'm doing on Feed the Deep and then mix other videos in. The reason is I want to continue to build audience around like non-Feed the Deep content along the way so that again, over that kind of multi-game like viewpoint, I can keep growing audience and kind of bring new eyes in so that they see it. Because otherwise, if I just do Feed the Deep content, it'll only be the same people who are interested in the Feed the Deep stuff. And then I'm not actually kind of expanding reach there. But it does make it hard. It's also really hard to make the videos about something where it's like, you know, this is the third video about it because you have to kind of build a little bit of context for people first. And it's like, so I'm working on this game and, you know, I've already done all of this and now here's where I'm up to and here's the current challenges. And it's like the first 10 seconds of the video are so important to like get people to stay. Like the first 10 seconds or so are like everything in the videos. And like when it's like, okay, so let me set up the story, everyone's already kind of like clicked away. So it is super challenging. And yeah, definitely something that I'm trying to manage. But yeah, I don't think I don't have any magic answer for that yet. Yes.
Did you do much work in promoting the channel initially, or did you just focus on creating good videos?
Yeah, I've done basically nothing other than I put a tweet. I think it was my first tweet that I'd done in 3 years. One of the reasons I really focused on YouTube as well is like I don't actually use social media or anything. Like I'm not on Reddit. I'm basically only on Twitter to occasionally like post like that I've released a YouTube video, and then every now and then I like release like a hiking photo or something just so it's like I've posted something that month. And so I did basically nothing. And the thing that has been interesting is like even like the subscribers don't have that big an impact on how well the YouTube videos do. Like there are subscribers basically like prime the first like 8 hours of the algorithm, and then after that it does its thing. And so yeah, I definitely haven't been doing that kind of external style promotion. Maybe I should, but for me, there's only so much I can do as one person, and I know that I feel like I'm decent at making YouTube videos and I'm bad at the other things, so I'm just hoping that the content itself helps it kind of cut through and spread. Yeah. Yes?
As someone who's been doing YouTube for sort of like 3 to 4 years, but in the music production space,
Wow.
anything from like 5 minutes to I made a 2-hour-long video, which you do not recommend. Do not recommend. And honestly, over that time, I found it super rewarding teaching people music production, but never had any real traction. Now I'm developing a game, and I'm curious because I'm thinking I'm not afraid to do the face thing, but I'm thinking of doing that and doing both building the game, but also showing a deep dive into how the music and the audio is created. Do you think it's smart to start with a fresh channel or continue
Oh,
with the
God.
current one?
That's a great question. So the question is like, should I start like a new channel for game dev stuff versus music production? I literally have no idea. I definitely consider myself like a beginner on like the YouTube side. There's so many like weird things as well, because probably whatever the correct answer is today might be different in like 6 months' time. I had a brand manager tell me that like you specifically do not want subscribers to your channel anymore based on like the current setup of the algorithm, because the more subscribers you have, the actual harder chance you have of going viral, especially if the content changes at all. And so their current advice is like, do not ask people to subscribe to your channel, because you will actually have a harder time cutting through. Because essentially, like, if you don't ask people to, then the only people who do subscribe super want your content. And therefore, when you first release the video, you get like a higher click-through rate on all of those like initial impressions, and then that kind of boosts it up into like the larger algorithm, and it's just like, oh God, I don't know. So yeah, I'm really not sure. Like, maybe it would be worth doing like a new channel, but I really don't consider myself like a YouTube expert at all. I'm just trying to put my stuff out there and hope for the best on that side. Adric.
Yeah, where are you kind of sitting between like wanting to give like, you know, the amount of time on the game that like you initially went in for that, the passion side of it, versus like capitalizing on like the popularity from YouTube?
Yeah, it's definitely so in terms of wanting to spend time on the game versus wanting to spend time doing YouTube and kind of like keep on growing that, it definitely fluctuates. Like, sometimes I'm super motivated to just be like, I just want to make videos and kind of like build that, because that could be like, you know, it's certainly not there yet, but it's progressively moving towards a place where it could be like its own business. The thing that I had been told by like a creator in Sydney was like that you'd need about, once you hit about 200,000 subscribers, you're essentially in this could be your full-time job kind of realm. But then basically what happens is then I'll do a video and the video doesn't do well, and I'm like, fuck this, I'm going to make a game. And then I'll be working on the game and I'll get stuck on something, I'm really frustrated with it and go, screw it, I want to go make videos. So it definitely like fluctuates, and I do have a really difficult time balancing those motivations, because there's certainly plenty of days where I would rather be doing one, but I'm like, no, I've kind of got that Screen Australia deadline for Feed the Deep coming up that I should really do work on. And so I really have to force myself that way, yeah.
Even like on the game itself, the like, should I spend a year making this, make it really good, or should I release it now while I've got this like YouTube attention on it?
Yeah, I spent a long time actually when I first did the Feed the Deep prototype. So before I released the video for it, I was like, I could kind of already feel that I thought there might be something there, and I spent quite a while trying to figure out the strategy for how to release it. Like, because at one stage I was going to release it just for $1 instead, and be like, and then that would be it, and it would be done, and I would move on to the next thing. And then I was going to do it as a demo, and where I landed, if you're not familiar, is it's just up on Steam, but you can also sign up for the closed beta playtest. And then I've been letting people into that like every video, basically. I think there's like 1,500 playtesters in there now, so quite a few. But yeah, that's like really tough. The main thing is like I said, I don't want to spend years and years and years on like the one game, because at least for me, like, I'm never going to win an award for like technical excellence or excellence in art. You know, like I know what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. And it's definitely like, I'm never going to make games that are like really high production, like big, massive games that are like really impressive in those ways. Like, I know that my strengths are generally having like an interesting, novel, potentially innovative idea, and then executing like that in quite a focused way. And I think that makes a good fit for releasing games kind of on like a 12 to 18 month timeline. Originally I thought I was just going to do 12 months, and then I'm like, oh crap, I have no time to like take a holiday, be sick or work on videos or literally or go to a conference, for example. So I think I'm kind of landing more at 18 months. But yeah, I'm sort of trying to stick to that. I do have a game that I want to that I haven't done a video for yet that I want to release. That'll just be like it's a one and done kind of really short one because it feels like a good fit. But generally, I would like to keep it to 18 months or smaller. Yes, up the back.
Have you got any management strategies for the audience expectations? Because I'm assuming there's probably a lot of comments being like, oh, you should add this or you should do this, and some of it's probably good and some of it's armchair development.
So yeah, the question is like, how do you manage kind of the audience expectations and about them like kind of asking things. So I did a follow-up video on Feed the Deep that was like, I added 10 YouTube comments to the game. That was really like about that, right? Like really adding people's feedback. Part of it was like, okay, I picked 6 things that I already knew I was going to add, and then I found comments that like matched that. And then I was like, there was 2 things where I was like, I know these are like bad ideas, but I can make them quickly and it will be like visually entertaining for me to do those and then not include them in the game. And so like, and it's surprising how that really resonated with people, that video. Like that, I guess something that I didn't get to mention in like the main one is Search Rock and Feed the Deep have actually had 2 videos each now, and like those general trends and stats have actually like carried across videos, even though they're like pitched really differently. I still kind of see roughly like that same level of engagement and interest carry over to the next videos. So I feel like there is value there to having them be the central focus of the YouTube video, and that will be an indicator of interest. But yeah, to your point of like managing the expectations, like I try and be like really kind of like open and transparent with the audience and just be like, this is what I'm doing, and either I am doing this or I'm not doing this. I think part of it as well is like when people make suggestions or things that you know are bad ideas or things that you already tried but you didn't include, you just need to like engage with those in like a really like gentle and empathetic way, because if you come at it like, I already tried that and it doesn't work, and then they argue back, it's just like that's not going to create like a healthy community. So we will see once it like actually gets to the game coming out and everything, like the tone and the nature of that interaction might change. But I'm hoping by just doing what I've been doing, which is like trying to be quite gentle and empathetic and understanding why people are like making those comments rather than engaging with the comment itself so much. I'm hoping that will keep carrying through to being like a really positive community experience. Fingers crossed. Yes.
While you were making the game and recording yourself sort of coding in Unity and stuff, did you feel like you had eyes over your shoulder, knowing that maybe 300,000 people were going to be looking at your code and picking it apart? I guess like if I was like, whether or not I was self-conscious about like the work that I was doing, a little bit, like I kind of like to play up how bad a programmer and how bad an artist I am as well, because I feel like that's a bit entertaining as well. Obviously can't do that too much because like that joke wears thin pretty fast. But every now and then, like I will like hold a frame that is just like, I know this like code is heinous, like there's some absolutely like awful, terrible stuff that I'm doing. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm like, that's just, I think that's partly entertaining, but it's also like the reality of how things get made, right? And it could be like a perfectly like engineered project, but also then it will take like 5 to 10 years for me to come out. So I guess like as well, being a little bit later in my career, I feel pretty confident about like my ability to make things, and I don't feel like if people jump in and be like, I can't believe you did that, like I don't know what to tell you. I feel nothing. Like I made licensed games for THQ. Like my skin is way thicker than that. So it's up the back. Have you found as much communication and collaboration between developers on YouTube and
Sorry, is the question like with other like content creators? Has there been much? Yeah, I've definitely had like people reach out and want to do collaboration and everything, which like could be cool in the future. I guess like everything that comes to me in terms of like opportunities like that, I need to weigh up in terms of like how it's going to impact like what I'm currently doing. And like frankly, I feel like about 35% oversubscribed at all times, and so there's very few things when people are like, we should do like a collab or something together, that
I feel like I can justify doing, unfortunately. I would love to be able to do those things, but yeah, there's just too much to do already. Yeah, I was going to do originally like some collaborations with some like a fairly big Australian YouTuber, but like once I sat down, I'm like, well, I'll literally not be able to work on the game for 2 months while I pull this together. I kind of just had to like make a call on it. So, sorry, up the back here.
Yeah. Did you ever consider starting something like a Patreon? Because I know a lot of content creators often like use that to
Yeah.
some sort of income model.
So I have actually started a Patreon just recently, which has been like a really interesting experience. Like I've sort of really trying to like not push it too fast, too early. Like I'd like to grow it really quite slowly. Because again, like I'm in a really fortunate position with like, with the support of like Screen Australia and Screen Queensland, I'm not like, desperately out of money or anything. And I really worry about, to the question before about expectations, once people are like financially supporting the channel, there's obviously like another level of like expectations about how you interact with that audience and everything. So I have done it, but I will say I've like really only dipped my toe in quite gently right now. And I would like to try and grow it quite slowly. I guess like kind of related to that in terms of like my business objectives, what I really want to do is like grow multiple like recurring revenue streams. Like I don't want to be making all of my money from like one thing, or I don't want to release a game and it does like super good for a month and then it's gone. I want to get into that point where there's, like hopefully I'm making a little bit of money from YouTube and a little bit of money from Patreon, and I have a couple of games out and they've all got like a tail that wags and is like making money every week. Like I really want to get into that kind of sustainable place to like grow a long-term, eventually low pressure, not super low pressure, but like not hanging on by the skin of my teeth business. So yeah, Patreon will hopefully be a part of that, but like I'm trying to tread really carefully in that space as well.
Thanks.
Yes.
You said you were very oversubscribed. Have you thought much about expanding either on the game or on the YouTube side?
Yeah, I definitely have thought about like bringing people in, and like so on the YouTube side, like I often get people like video editors and stuff come in and say like, hey, I could help you out with the video editing. I don't actually think that would save me that much time in the end, because I find the edit for me is like a 6-hour job. And whenever they send me like to be clear, these are very like talented editors, like way better than me, but they send me like their portfolios and it's like, like air horn, what's up, it's your boy. And I'm like, this is totally not the vibe of what I'm going for. Like I kind of like, so for the video, like I actually just shoot everything on my iPhone as well. Like I don't have like a big fancy camera and lens set up. Like I want it to be, I don't want it to look bad, but I'm not trying to push it towards being super professional. Like again, I really want it to be about couched in kind of like authenticity and like connection with people. And I think me having control over that side helps create that kind of like authenticity. On the game side, I am going to be getting like a little bit of help just through contractors who are going to help me out with there's a few things in game development that I've realized like I actually don't think I can do this and I need some help. Just some of like the much more like technical kind of work especially. But I'm trying to actually keep that as small as possible, because I do want to have that kind of like, I made this experience. For better or for worse, like if I was just trying to optimize my business outcomes, that isn't how I would do it. But this is about me learning and growing as a creator. So I think we have 2 more minutes, and then like I said, afterwards you can totally come and talk to me. Any other questions? Yes.
Just around short form content that's like obviously popular right now.
Yeah.
You didn't mention, so I was thinking, what's your thoughts on like for game developers?
Sure, yeah. I mean, so the question is like about short form content as well. So I do some YouTube shorts. I do technically have a TikTok account. Basically, like the thing I have learned is I'm bad at short form. I just am. One thing is I don't engage in short form content. Like, what my favorite like YouTube stuff is like, hey, here's an 1.5 hour long video about the indicator in my car. And I know at least a couple of people have seen that video as well. Yes, it's so good. Like I don't really engage with short form media, but like also like when I do open TikTok and look at shorts, like I can see that the specifically like younger people creating that content are like so smart at building for that kind of content, right? Like the first frame of the video comes up and there's like some part of your brain that goes, wait, what? Like what's happening here? I can't do that. And I've been trying to do that. And I've done a bunch of shorts to try and learn and expand that. And I'm learning that like my strength is in long form content and not short form. I know that there was like a TikTok talk yesterday, like how to build a TikTok pipeline, which I wish I could have gone to, because I feel like I would be able to learn a lot. But mostly I'm just like, I really like to tell like kind of like longer stories, I guess kind of like this. And a lot of that involves like building up kind of like context and like building into kind of like the interesting part. And, I feel like I have some experience with that from just doing like quite a few, I think this is my 7th GCAP talk or something, and, doing quite a lot of that style, but just, I can't do short form. I can't do it well. Like every single attempt I have is just, it turns out terrible.
It's
So.
more authentic because like you enjoy yourself, so you don't know what.
That's right. Yeah, it's when I'm trying to make short form content, I feel like super like like hello fellow kids, like it's just like me pretending to know what like people want out of that. Whereas I do feel like I understand like the medium of like long form media. I wish I was better at it, but I'm not, and I've come to peace with that, generally speaking. Okay, that's it for this. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you. And like I said, I'm hanging around if people want to come up and ask me more questions. Like I said, if you want to see like dashboards and numbers, I'm super open to sharing all of that. So